Thank you very much for coming. And could you maybe give me just a 5-minute warning or something? Just so I know that I've got 5 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, yes, 5 minutes.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So, my name is Rakesh. I was born and brought up in the UK, which is where I'm at right now. I have done many things in my life. I guess one of the core things that I'm doing right now is teaching permaculture and community building. But in particular, I really love forest gardening. And from a community perspective, sociocracy is absolutely my tool of choice. So in the past, I used to be a computer consultant, Unix specialist. I've taught yoga, but I'm more into the philosophy and holistic life way of looking at life rather than just the physical postures and asanas. I'm also a qualified homeopath, and I have a strong passion for reggae, and I'm a reggae DJ. So this is the many moods that I have. So yes, so at a given point, I will ask a question, and in fact we've pretty much addressed this because I was going to ask for a volunteer, but Pierre has already stepped up for that. So what I'd like to ask you is, first of all, what from your perspective, and maybe we'll just hear from 2-3 people, are the strengths of sociocracy? Why is sociocracy such an amazing, strong, what is it that is unique about sociocracy that really gives it this strength? So hands up or just unmute yourselves, and who'd like to speak into that? Anyone?
I think the values and the way power is distributed can make it so people feel comfortable sort of committing to it together with the safety of like consent and things like that.
Brilliant. Okay. I can't actually see who's speaking in this mode. Let me just see if I can. And I can't do it as a host. I can only do it when I'm. Yeah, brilliant. Anything else? So it's this distribution, and yeah, wonderful. Distribution of power.
Clarity. I will say clarity creates a lot of clarity in people. We know what we have decided and how we have decided and what was the path. So we have, everybody is able to support the decision after.
Fantastic. Yep. Anything else anyone would like to throw in?
Everyone gets heard.
Fantastic. So everyone has their place. Everyone gets heard. It's a process that allows everyone to find their place, but really have clarity on what it is we're doing. For me, the most important part is that whenever we join a sociocratic process, we have a really nice, clear idea of what it is we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to achieve it. And so we've got some boundaries around the project that we're doing. And then people can choose, are they passionate about that? Do they really resonate with that? Or is that not something they're interested in? And so you can see very quickly and very easily whether this is a project for you to play with, to navigate with, to flow with, to allow, to grow and expand. So
Rakesh, could I just add in the other part that's really important for me is actually the circle work, because it's like the fact that you're actually creating a space where there is a feeling, you can see a sense of equivalence. It's not just about actually the work that you're doing, it's like creating a visual, physical representation as well. Just lovely. Sorry, I've just joined, so apologies, I'm just jumping in.
That's fine. And it's that as well as that physical, the physical shape of the circle, but it's also that feeling of togetherness that it really brings, that we are on this path together, which is fantastic. Thanks for adding that. So what are some of the kind of limitations though to this? And this is what I'm going to invite you to just type up. So we know what sociocracy is, but what are some of the limitations that we have in learning sociocracy or getting up to speed with sociocracy that you're going to have a challenge with when you're looking at a short-term project? And when we mean a short-term project, I mean some of the places, I think maybe it's the next slide, some of the places where I typically use it are in permaculture design courses, so 2 weeks, community building experiences, which can be between 9 days and 3 weeks. But you know, it could be used in any kind of course where the sense of community is really essential. I've used it for temporary projects, you know, just you know, doing some kind of an action, whether it's an activism project, whether it's an event. But I also use this same model to kickstart a new project without needing months and months and months and months of training for governance. So yeah, so how do I go backwards? Yeah, so if you can, just let's say a couple of minutes just to think of some of the challenges that you can imagine there might be in terms of getting this, you know, this level of connectedness that sociocracy brings in a short-term project. So, and obviously, can I get chat up? Wonderful, there we go. And I've invited, or Pierre's offered, to copy and paste these into a spreadsheet that I've also shared the link for. So later on, at the end of the presentation, we'll go back and have a look at it to see how well has this process covered those, and therefore, is there anything we need to think of beyond what I've just covered?
Just taking care of Julian, Leila, and Kim.
Okay. Right. So. Yeah, so practice, you know, how to get people up to speed in learning sociocracy. I think, yeah, educating, training members, the knowledge of the method, lack of trust between people. Fantastic. Great. So keep throwing those in as and when you can. And what we'll do is at the end, we'll come back to that list to see how well this approach has tackled it. So what I'd like to share with you is how I typically use this in particular in my courses. And maybe it's easier to talk about the permaculture courses because that's probably where that's probably what I do most, and so it's easier to talk about that. And actually, one other thing I should say is that my form of sociocracy is an adaptation of the kind of classic sociocracy, but really looking at it from the perspective of how to get groups up and running when there is this really different level of skills within the group and different passions. For some people love governance, some people really, no, I don't want, just tell me what to do and I'll go and do it. And so how do you engage all of them? And so one of the biggest obstacles that I see in delivering a sociocratic project is when you end up having meetings that take so long, and half of the things that are being discussed you just don't care about. You care about the project, but this particular aspect of it you just don't care. And why am I sitting through 3 hour worth of meetings over a week or whatever to discuss and talk about something that look, I trust you guys. You just make the decision. I'll just double check it. And as long as I don't see any reason as to why it really, I can, if I see there's a reason as to why it really will not work and it will jeopardize our project, then I'll say so. But otherwise, I totally trust you. So how to build this kind of network. So I've slightly modified sociocracy. Some of my students kind of lovingly call it Rakocracy, which I think is a bit cheesy, but sometimes I go with it. It was done lovingly, so I accept it lovingly. So how to get a course off the ground. So the first thing we do when the students arrive, and we're talking about 15 to maximum, let's say 25, sometimes 30 people, many of whom are of from such different backgrounds, different ages, you know, so some are kind of students there from 16 years of age through to 80 years of age. Some were, you know, hardcore business people and now looking to, you know, do something different. Some are, you know, very, very left wing. Some are, you know, there's such an amazing, beautiful diversity of people who arrive with so many different experiences in life. And we somehow need to make a community with all of this amazing diversity. So the first thing we do is we want to create a vision. So we find out from each person, why are you here? What needs to happen in the next 2 weeks to make you passionately say, this was the most amazing, beautiful, learnful, if that is even a right word, experience. You know, how, and so based on that, once we try to understand what people need from this, what they would like from this, and share some of their ideas of how, you know, then we can start seeing how we actually co-create that. So we create a vision. We co-create the vision. We create a mission as to how we're going to do that, and then the aims of, you know, some of the specifics. That's standard sociocratic stuff. So where I differ, what I've added to all of my projects is I also create a culture. And what the culture is it's looking at, you know, any obstacles and helpers. You know, what are the barriers to participation? So is there anything that is really going to restrict you from really being able to truly thrive in this community? You know, it could be some kind of physical or, you know, there's all kinds of things that people, you know, everyone's unique. So we need to identify those things so we can make sure we take care of everyone in the group. But we also want to look at what are the things that we feel will really truly help to enrich our experience here. You know, so this is about connectedness. This is about having fun, about, you know, authentic communication. It's about, yeah, truly giving people that safe space to express themselves. And so that we can, as we know with sociocracy, the most important part of sociocracy is the feedback loop. If we don't get feedback from people to know something isn't working, we can't fix it, we can't change it. But once we've got that trust in people and they can start expressing themselves and sharing their, you know, their whatever challenges they may be, then we can deal with it. You know, one of the kind of mottos we have for our projects is that this is like if we think of this like a pilgrimage, you know, the output, I'm not quite sure what the right word is, but the beautiful thing about the pilgrimages is, yes, we're all gonna, it's more, it's just as important about the actual journey as the end goal. So how we get there, what we do, but it's really important that we all get to the end goal together. So so there's this saying, you know, that the convoy can only go as fast as the slowest ship. So if we're all going together, we need to make sure that everyone is coming together. So whatever we have to do to pick people up, to help them along, to keep everyone going together, this is the real joy, this is the real beauty of this process. So we establish a culture for how we're going to bring that. And as we know, one of the most important parts of sociocracy is getting this feedback. So imagine we have a culture, we express ourselves, we say, yeah, we're going to do this, you know, we want authentic communication, you know, we're going to be on time for the classes, we're going to, you know, make sure we have a morning ritual, checking in with each other, a checkout process, and all these beautiful things. But how do we know that it's working? Yeah, it's all good and well putting it on paper, but we need to make it happen. And perhaps if I stop sharing this for a moment, and instead you can see my screen. Can't even see myself at the moment, but Hold on, let me see if I can. Oh, I'm frozen. Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, it's all come back to life again. Great. Sorry, everything froze for a second there. So what I've got is, and I don't know how I'm going to position this so you can see it without glare. Maybe like that. Does that work?
It works.
So what I do is I create what I call a culture board. So all the different things that we have said we're going to do within our community, within our our workshop, we have written down as one of the cultures. And I'm not expecting you to be able to read this. Maybe some of you sharp-eyed can, but you have things like timekeeping, take responsibility to meet your own needs, responsibility for health and safety for all, keeping the teaching space clean, and so on and so forth. And the way that this culture board works, it's a little bit like a kind of Kanban, where we have different areas and everyone says, well, where do they feel, how do they feel we're doing in each of these realms in terms of as our culture? And we can use any kind of analogy here in this particular case because it's permaculture. People are always talking about plants and things. So we have the seeding phase. So, you know, it's a seed, it's a potential, you know, we haven't started, you know, the timekeeping really isn't working yet. It's a potential. Then sprouting, we're just starting to get the idea of this. It's just coming to life. Then you have the leafing phase. Right now it's gaining momentum, you know, it's starting to photosynthesize, it's building the roots, it's getting some strength. And then the flowering phase where right now we actually, you know, we've got some strength, we've got some power, and it's really, really, really flourishing. It's flowering now. And then the last one is it's fruiting. We could use, you know, baby, child, teen, adult, and then sometimes, you know, the last one is guru or something like that, you know. So you can use anything. But the key way in which this works is that everyone has an opportunity to move these according to where they feel it fits for them. And, you know, so, and what we're looking at is and what we invite people to do is to say, if you feel that it is lower than where it currently is, it's more important that you move it back than move it forward. Why do you think we might do that? Why do you think we want to hear from someone who instead of thinks, timekeeping is really leafing, we want to hear for them it's sprouting? Anyone?
Because you want to bring everyone to the same level. And if any one person's behind, then you have to do something to bring them up.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's exactly it. So we want to know where the difficulties lie. We want to know where someone is struggling and where it's not working for somebody so that we can then fix it. So this is a really visual feedback loop we can create. So I invite people to do this whenever they want, but every 2 days or something, we will actively as a whole group go and take a look at it. And we invite people to take a photograph of it every day so that we can monitor it. And what it helps us to realize is quite often some things just end up in seeding phase all the time. What do you think could be the conclusion that we make of something like that? It's consistently in that phase.
Person doesn't feel like they have responsibility for it or enough power to move that forward.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's several things. It could be that people don't understand it. It could be that they don't feel they're empowered to actually do anything about it. It could be that actually, while it was a good idea at the beginning, actually, do we really need this? Maybe it's not even necessary. So whatever the answer, the key thing is we discuss it. We start a dialogue around it. We try to understand it. And then, you know, it could be, yeah, let's just take that off. It's not important, actually. So whatever. So let's go back to the I'll get the right screen. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so we develop a culture board so that we can get this continuous feedback from people in terms of how well we're actually doing with our culture. The other thing that I do is I create what we call guilds, which are like little support groups, and I think I'll explain that in a moment. Typically, what I'll do is the first day of a permaculture course is purely sociocracy. So one day, so whatever, 7 hours of actual sociocracy from day one, and then we go into the permaculture course. With a community building experience, we actually do it for 2 days because sociocracy is a much bigger subject that people want to learn. And for some shorter courses, we kind of do a really quick version of this in like we can do it in a couple of hours, but we need to make some big assumptions and things and what have you. So we've got our vision and mission for the group. We have a culture. We have some feedback loop of how we can monitor to see if the group is really working. Now what we need for the main group, which we call the learning circle, is a facilitator for facilitating meetings. We need a logbook keeper, and I don't use the term secretary, I use the term meeting organizer for various reasons. And then the facilitator of learning is the person who's teaching. That's me. So that's a very distinct role. So not exactly a classic sociocratic role, but I also want to make sure that everyone consents to me leading the actual workshop. So I create a role description for myself, or we co-create a role description for me as a teacher, the facilitator of learning, so that I can make sure that I am working within the bounds of what is acceptable for everyone else. Obviously, in order to do that, we need to create role descriptions for each of the different, each of these groups, and we need to elect people. And typically, we'll start by electing at least 2 people into each of those roles, so that they can support each other, and therefore more people get an experience of utilizing the roles. So then what the guilds do, in fact, I'll cover exactly what it says at the bottom. Some of the things that guilds do is they do all the cooking, they do the purchasing of the food together, they do cleaning, they set up the working spaces, and whatever functions need to take place in order to make sure we have a really great working environment and are taking care of each other. So sometimes there's like a heart and soul group in there. There's all kinds of different things. That's some of the functions they do. But they also have a time where they check in with each other. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail later. But the key part of that is, it's a time for them every single day, 45 minutes normally, where they can check in with each other, and typically 4 people in a group. They can identify any issues, anything that's not working for them, but they can also use the time to review the day. What did we learn? What did we not understand? Again, if there's something they didn't understand, they can bring it back to me and I can explain it later on. So in order to do this, to create these guilds, we obviously need a vision, mission and aim for each. It's like they are effectively like sub-circles from the learning circle, but it's the learning circle that creates them. We then create role descriptions and elect people to be vision upholders. So this is my term for operations leader. I call this person a vision upholder. So the person who ensures that the vision that we, as the overarching circle, give to the sub-circle, is what, to make sure that they are fulfilling that. And the vision upholder has no real power other than just to watch, observe, monitor, and see that things are happening according to the vision. And sometimes we have a foodie, which I guess is not so important, but obviously if each group is going to be cooking each day, we need to make sure that there's someone who really understands food, quantities and so on and so forth. So then the guilds meet. They elect a representative, so someone who goes back to the main circle to feed back on what's going on and any challenges and issues, etc. They then elect their own facilitators, their own meeting organizers, and their own logbook keepers. They also can create, they can either inherit the culture from the main group, or perhaps, and in a creative environment, they'll co-create their own culture, especially little rituals and routines of how they take care of each other. And that's strongly encouraged. So now getting down to each, you know, what happens and how the sociocracy actually happens. How much time do I have, by the way?
We have, it's a 12 past 16, and you have 8 minutes before the 5-minute warnings.
Okay, lovely, bang on time, wonderful, thank you. So, so the different sessions we have, we can start off with the morning session. So imagine, you know, we've got a course, we've had breakfast, we've done all of our asanas or whatever we want to do in the morning, and now we're all together. So the first thing we do is, you know, typically we want to make it quite light-hearted, but also make it functional as well. So we do various games and exercises and energizers, and then maybe we start with a check-in, see how everyone's doing, so that we know where the energy is, who needs taking care of, and obviously if someone expresses they're not feeling too well, we invite the guild to keep close eye on them, etc. Any announcements that are necessary, and this is the key, the real part I want to talk about, is we have 15 minutes of sociocracy every morning. So this is quite different to many other. So we have 15 minutes of sociocracy in the morning. We have 15 minutes of sociocracy at the end of the day. Now, many of you are probably thinking, but that's impossible. How on earth do we get everyone up to speed with sociocracy, with all the governance and all the things, when we've only got 15 minutes in the schedule in the morning and afternoon? Hopefully all will be revealed as we go along. And then the morning session also ends with some kind of a review for how people, you know, what they learned the previous days. So in the guild meeting, which typically happens after the last lecture of the day, is this is a chance, as I say, where people talk about whatever challenges and issues they have. They talk about, you know, how they're feeling. This is a time for people to connect with each other, and as well as review the actual content. So if an issue does come up, the first line of action is it something that this little group can solve? I'm too cold at night. I don't know, I'm just not warm enough. I've got a spare blanket. There you go, solved. No need for that to go further. But what if it's a larger thing, you know, that the whole group really needs to get involved in? You know, every night there's these people, they're playing music and talking till 4 o'clock in the morning right next to my tent. And, you know, and I just can't sleep. And so now, all of a sudden, this isn't something that this group could, unless it's this group who's making all the noise. But let's assume it's not. Let's assume it's from other people from other guilds, other groups. And so we need to bring this to the large group. So it's now the representatives' role to take this issue and bring it to the main group. Then after that, then the actual last session of the day is actually where we get feedback from the guilds. And in particular, what we're looking for is, I mean, they can express anything, but in particular, we're looking for any challenges or anything that we need to work on. You know, they can share their joys if there's no issues, but if there are issues, this is the time where it really needs to be expressed. So what this could initiate is some kind of a proposal forming process. So proposal forming exercise. And the way that I work, and the way that the reason why I can have just 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, is that we then say, all right, whoever is passionate about that, whoever feels that this is something that they want to spend their time and energy on looking at, then please join that meeting. So what we typically end up doing is having some kind of a proposal board, so some kind of a board, a sheet or something where people can put new proposals, because a proposal doesn't only come from or an issue doesn't only come from the guild, it could come from other places as well. So we need some way to capture that, some way to know that, oh, there is an issue. And it has various bits of information that help us to understand what, at what stage it's at. You know, has the group met? So the key thing is that once there is an issue, people need to know about it, so they can choose whether they are interested or if they have time and energy to participate in it. So, so then people go away and have their own meetings. So whoever is passionate joins the meeting. And so, so there's a proposal forming process. It could take 1, 2, 3 meetings, who knows? Depends how easy, how simple, how complex the proposal may be. They may want to initiate some kind of process where they get information from everybody before they make a decision, before they try to put a proposal together. So, so yes, it could be short, it could be long, but at whatever point they are then ready, they then put it on, depending on what kind of proposal board you have, you kind of update it to say, right, there is now a proposal and you can read it here. Here's the sheet where the proposal is. So people can then look at it, they can see it. If they understand it and they like the look of it, job done. But if they look at it and think, actually, I don't really understand that, or no, this isn't working for me, or whatever, if they have some reason as to why it isn't clear and isn't obvious, then what we need is some kind of a proposal clarification meeting. So some way in which people can get more input, get a little bit more understanding of the proposal, so they are then in a position to actually then make a decision. I know I'm speaking quite quickly, but hopefully you're beginning to see how my process works. It's a little bit different to the classic sociocracy. So that means that when we get to either the morning or the afternoon sociocracy 15-minute sessions, the only thing we need to do is to consent to those proposals. So because the work has been done beforehand, a group has gone off, they've made a proposal, everyone was invited to participate in it. Anyone who was passionate or had the time or energy were invited to participate. The proposal was created, it was shared with everybody. Everyone had a chance to read it, to see it. And so in this 15 minutes, if a new proposal has been put up, we can tell people, hey, there's this new proposal, please go and read it, because at the next meeting, we're going to test for consent. Obviously, this is also another chance where the logbook keeper can announce, hey, the VMA is about to run out. So please go and have a look at it again and see, does it still excite you? Is this still like really burning and like, whoa, yeah, this is what we want to be doing? Or is there something that's no longer working for you? So you have an opportunity. Thank you. 5-minute warning. Thank you. So those things are relatively quick. So all we really need to do is now just test for consent. And because everyone has had an opportunity to engage with the process up to now, in most cases, it just breezes through. Because also maybe through the clarifications, maybe you needed to change it, but then you need to present that change to everybody and say, hey, that old one, no longer, this is now the new proposal that we're going to test for, and so on and so forth. So by the time you actually get to this part of the meeting, by the time you get to this part of the meeting, everyone knows, or if people haven't had time to look at it, then there's a couple of things that can happen. Either we say, well, just trust those of us who have looked at it, or why don't you, now that you hear it again, now that you know, you've got X amount of time to think about it. And if you find a reason as to why it's not good enough for now, not safe enough to try, come back and let us know immediately. But otherwise, we'll invite you, we'll assume that you consent, or, So yeah, so the evening sessions and the morning sessions are pretty much the same. They're just 15 minutes. It keeps it nice and neat. The other things that people can then do are other self-organized sessions are role elections, so how and when we elect people. So maybe we can even put that into the actual timetable, or maybe we do that in the evenings or whatever. And also performance reviews. It's really, great. I don't know how much experience you guys have had of performance reviews, but it's a really positive, supporting process that just really shows people and congratulates people on what they've done and what they've achieved, and allows them to see how they can evolve and grow. So to recap, what we've done is we've started a course, and we've got people to start learning sociocracy while creating policies, i.e. we create the vision, mission and aim, the culture, and so on and so forth. So so they've learned or they've created the blueprint for the actual for how we're going to work for the rest of the few weeks or the project by creating those while learning sociocracy. But then every day we just have short sessions, 2 15-minute sessions, as well as other self-organized sessions in their own time. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Well, actually, I've kind of expressed it here. People, the main reason why I do that is people can then engage as little or as much as they want. So those who really want to learn about governance and are there because, wow, this is amazing governance. It's something I really want to learn from my project. They can engage more. Those who are, well, actually, I've just come to learn permaculture. Just teach me how to grow food and build my houses, and don't want to work with other people, so not interested. If we had 2 hours of governance every single day, those people would not be happy. And the point is we want to keep people happy. So if it's just 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, it keeps people energetic and engaged, but still gives us the opportunity to utilize sociocracy. The most important thing is at every stage of this process, everyone is given the opportunity to participate in some way. In particular, we really encourage everyone to try out the different roles. And obviously we have the opportunity in the bigger learning circle, but in each guild, perhaps the roles can just change around every single day. So everyone has an opportunity to try being the facilitator, to try being the meeting organizer, to try being the logbook keeper. Why do you think that's important from a sociocratic perspective? I think we're more or less at the end. So
we have 6 minutes left before the next one is starting. Rakesh.
6 minutes, including the question and answers, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right, no problem. Okay, so we'll move on. What did we achieve? So we've experienced sociocracy in a large group and small groups. We've co-created vision, mission, and aim. We saw the value of the feedback loop and how we can use that to adjust policies. We've got short, effective, we have these short, effective meetings that are mandatory for everyone, as well as longer self-organized meetings. Everyone has a chance to express themselves. We've had an opportunity to try different roles. We've had performance reviews. We've had fun, hopefully, and it's been a really positive experience for people working in a group. So what we do in a second, or actually we can choose if we want to do this or not, is just to go back and have a look if we've really addressed all of the challenges that we saw. I'll leave this up, so if people want to take any of my details, you've got them all here. So maybe just do a print screen or whatever's the easiest way.